So this is the first Board of Ethical Review case. We'll be looking at BER cases. I'll refer to them. The BER, the Board of Ethical Review, you should go to the NSPE website and poke around a little bit. I mean, that's what I do. To get a notion of, what is this actually? What is this? Well, the Board of Ethical Review has been around since the 1950s. It consists of a rotating membership group of professional engineers who come up with these cases. And these cases, you have to say right away, they're probably based on something that actually happened, but they're fictionalized. They're engineer A, engineer B, company X. And even if they were based on something that actually happened, the Board of Ethical Review feels free to change the facts, because there's no engineer who's being judged here, a real person. They're for teaching purposes. They're for us, teachers and students of engineering ethics. So that should be, it's not actually. The Board of Ethical Review is not sanctioned to, discipline engineers in any way. It's for teaching purposes, and it's a wonderful archive, as you'll see if you do poke around the ethics section of the NSPE website. There are hundreds and hundreds of cases going back to the 1950s covering everything that's in the code. So it's a wonderful resource that we have. As far as looking at BER cases, I like to start small. We'll get to cases that are life and death cases. We'll get to cases that are about, public safety issues, first canon issues. We get to pretty important things about financial improprieties and duties of engineers to protect the public and to not associate with anybody who's engaged in fraud or dishonest enterprise, serious issues. I like to start out with things that are not so serious. A couple cases this week. And I think that it makes a good point, because they are fairly small issues, not returning emails or phone calls, as this case is about. It's not the end of the world. And it's typical behavior that we do. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's plenty of emails that I haven't gotten back to and probably should have, but I don't feel that I've engaged in necessarily any kind of significantly unethical behavior. But things like this make a point. Right? This case involves an engineer who failed to respond to a client for like 3 weeks. And that's probably not very smart behavior on the part of anybody who's engaged in business of any sort, but that's not the point, right? The point, as the BER says, excuse me, wow, is whether it rises to an ethical lapse. It's just not wise behavior not to get back to somebody in professional or business life generally. The question is it unethical? Right? That's the difference. In business, I would say if it's just a business person, we could say it was unwise not to get back to somebody. But in a professional relationship with a client, it may actually be unethical, right? Because of the special nature of professional work and the special nature of the professional client relationship. So the facts of the case, you can read them for yourself. The discussion, you can read for yourself. I mean, it's quite obvious. The conclusion being, or the conclusion, it's quite obvious what the conclusion is here if you read it, and that is that it was unethical on the part of this engineer, in the opinion of the Board of Ethical Review, to fail to get back for 3 weeks to a client. Not just impractical, not just unwise, unethical. And that's a really interesting claim